Okay.
And now we are live. So welcome everyone to another episode of QuaranCon continuing content. That's QuaranCon Cube. Why? Because I'm that kind of nerd. Thank you. We're here today with Quenby Olson, the author of many books, but today we're specifically talking about Miss Percy's Pocket Guide to the Care and Feeding of British Dragons. And I'm about 60% through the book, 61% through the book, yay, Kindle giving me a percentage rather than a page number. I am enjoying the heck out of it so far. It is delightful. And so I highly recommend it to anyone. I can't wait to get through the rest of it. It has been a 2 weeks for me and reading, which is to say not reading because of having kids at home and stuff with colds and blah, blah, blah. So I really
understood.
Really finish the book and I'm enjoying it so much, but I've not had much time to read. So I am where I am.
Oh yeah.
But it is delightful. So everyone, the link is in the description. Please go pre-order yourself a copy. If the idea of a Regency-ish romance combined with dragons, and I feel like I should only loosely say Regency romance because really it's just Regency. What is a good way to describe it? Because the romance is a super slow burn.
The romance is very slow and very subtle. I compare it more to like Cranford and those BBC miniseries where it was like the whole story of the village and the characters, and there might maybe be a little bit of a romance off to the side, but it was more just here's this quaint little village and kind of a few months in the life of that place and poof, dragons,
so it's
you know.
So it's like a slice of life period piece with dragons.
Yes.
And then potentially maybe a romance on the side.
Yes.
Yeah. And that seems accurate. It is anyway, it's delightful to read. Like I love Mildred. I love Mr. Wiggins. I love Mrs. Babington. So these characters are so great. And of course I adore Fitz, but I don't know how to, crush this into a genre because that seems unnecessary.
It's interesting because it's some of my thinking was like, well, it's kind of like The Princess Bride in the sense that there's adventure and there's romance and there's, the different characters, this wide variety of characters. And I'm thinking, well, how did they market Princess Bride? Oh, they did a really bad job of it and it flopped. Okay, that's no help.
Yeah, they couldn't pin it anywhere.
They didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah, and then the audience didn't know what to make of it either. In terms of before they went to see it. I mean, I feel like who actually went to see it were like, but it was amazing.
Yeah, it was when it went on to VHS, for all of us older people who know what that is, when it went on to VHS, that it exploded once it showed up in Blockbuster and all of that.
And everyone was like, wait, what? I can take this home? And then,
what is this? What are they talking about?
Oh, I watched it so many times. So many times. It's great. Probably the first film that I binge watched over and over again. Like that, I think. Yeah. I think that's, I don't know if you can binge watch a movie because it's just the one movie, but I watched it repeatedly, frequently as a child. Early teen and even into my teens, I loved it so much. Then even though I could quote the entire movie without watching any of it, I still watched it again because why wouldn't you, right? I don't know. So anyway, great. So the marketing is difficult. But it is a delightful book. So I don't know, if you like things that are delightful, you should pre-order it. And it comes out in 2 days. You don't even have to wait long, right? It comes out on the 26th. So everybody should hit pre-order. While you're busy poking buttons, please hit like on this video and also maybe subscribe to our channel because we do this periodically and some people find it enjoyable. Also, just a brief bit of QuaranCon business before I forget. This anthology came out back in September and it is only $4.99 to get this delightful, pretty paperback. And it is all the top 3 stories of the 2020 and 2021 QuaranCon short fiction contest, all in a single volume. It helps support all of these authors, and a tiny portion goes to keeping QuaranCon's lights on. So, and the ebook is only 99 cents. So 99 cents or $4.99. And please check it out if you are watching at home. That went live in September, and we would love for you to check it out. That is my little bit of QuaranCon business. And now I'm done promoting QuaranCon and back to just talking about you. So I've got a list of questions, and which I have to bring up over here on my other laptop. Awkward 2-screen setup that I've got because I'm that weird. And my first question I'm very excited about because I'm so excited about these types of awards. And also, so how many awards have you won whose prize is a sharp dagger?
I have won one award that is a sharp dagger. I won a stabby. Was it last year? I have no idea. Time has no meaning.
Time has no.
I think it was last year, something like that. Within the last year, I won a stabby, the R Fantasy Stabby Award, and that was for a short story, All Ends, in the what's the name of the anthology? Heroes Wanted. Heroes Wanted anthology.
Awesome.
I can't do this. I
Awesome.
can't.
That's okay. It's okay.
So,
we got time. There's no rush.
Yeah.
There's not a Jeopardy thing playing while you think of answers. It's all good. That is awesome. I'm super jealous. I have always, ever since the Stabbies came into existence, I've been like, I want to win one of these awards, not really because of the prestige, but just for the dagger. Like
just for the dagger.
Send me something sharp.
Yes. Send me weapons, please.
Yeah, exactly. In regards to my books, please and thank you. Yes, that's awesome. Super awesome. And congratulations. That is brilliant. It's funny because I think I asked a different author who would also want a stabby at one point, the same question. The reason I asked how many sharp dagger related awards you've won is because the other time I asked this question, the author was like, well, actually I've got like 3, because they'd won maybe more than one stabby, but they'd also won Book Nest also started doing their own awards.
Has yes, they send out some kind of weaponry. Yes.
Yeah, they do. And so this person had 3 daggers from books. And I was like, man, I have won 0 daggers from fiction contests. I demand. No, I don't demand anything. But yeah, I was like, okay, well now I have to if I'm gonna ask the question, I now need to ask in the plural, because clearly there are more of these pointy-ended awards.
Pointy awards.
That I initially suspected. Well, massive congrats to that. That sounds amazing. Did that come with a lot of pomp and circumstance? Was it just sort of oh, I got a dagger in the mail, how cool is that? Or what was
it? No, it pretty much is a dagger in the mail. I mean, it's, what's this package? I don't remember ordering. Oh, right. Knife. Yes. Okay. That's cool. Yes. It's there's no, it just shows up in your mailbox. Here's this knife you won, and it's gorgeous. It's really gorgeous. I will say that. I'm going to make you more jealous. It's a beautiful piece.
That's okay. Make me more jealous, please. That's fabulous. I love it. I love that that's a thing. Please, every awards organization that is watching this, consider making a very sharp, pointy, lethal object for your award if you give out fantasy awards, because I think there should be more of them. We should all just have, because it's more appropriate, right? That fantasy authors should just have collections of weaponry that then trophies or whatever. There's a curling trophy behind me from my husband's curling days in high school.
We've got the scout trophies and
blunt trauma if there's a break-in, I guess. But come on, send me a sword or a dagger, an axe or a mace. I'm flexible with the kind of weaponry. But
you could even maybe for fantasy have a goblet.
Oh yeah, that's nice.
Something like that would be nice. So if you don't want pointy, pointy for, let's say, little children, you could have
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Yes. And I would accept dragon statuary as well. I think that's fine.
Yeah.
But anyway, I like those more creative awards. That's pretty cool. QuaranCon, we couldn't really afford much of anything, although Pam did get, for the best worst line, a little turd trophy. that she sent. It's like a golden pile of poop that got sent out to the person who wrote the best worst line. And then for our actual, like, our fiction authors whose work we really enjoyed and wanted to laud, we just were like, well, we'll publish an anthology that hopefully some people might see. But that was the best. I did, like, there were votes for Daggers, and I was like, I'm all for it, but we do not have the budget.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
But someday we hope to be able to afford to send all of our winning authors Daggers. That would be great. But it is tricky to send them internationally. It's one thing to send daggers around in the US, but like even here in Canada, you'd have to send me a very small dagger in order to get it through the mail. So I guess throwing knives maybe, but even those I'm not sure. That would be cool though. I would take a set of throwing knives. If anyone's listening and I happen to win any awards, which is both of those things are highly unlikely, especially in conjunction. But okay, throwing it out in the universe. All right, that probably should move on to the next question by now. So, have you always lived in the wilds of Pennsylvania? Is this is that your forever place, or have you moved around? What's the
Yes, I'm not one of those fancy people that's been like, well, I lived in Dubai and then I lived in Japan and I grew up. I was born in a very small town called Liverpool, Pennsylvania, which is less than 1,000 people.
And not home to the Beatles.
Now I live 20 minutes south of there in another small town. And that's it. So I've moved a whole 20 miles from childhood to adulthood. And I'm fine with that. I love it. I love it here. I think Pennsylvania is gorgeous.
Yes.
I don't see a reason to leave. I think it's just beautiful here.
That seems totally fair. I have driven through those parts of Pennsylvania and always found them really pretty, especially in the fall.
Yeah.
But all the time, like those rolling mountains and hills are really, really.
And we live right by the river, the Susquehanna River.
Oh, nice.
So we have all of the mountains coming right down into the river, and it winds through, and it's just, especially during fall, like you said, it's just gorgeous. It's very picturesque.
Lovely.
And I love it.
Yeah. Well, why would you leave them? So that's totally fair. That sounds amazing. And you like it, and that's excellent. That's really all that matters. That's 100% what. And I had a follow-up question for that, and I've completely forgotten what it was. I think it was about hiking. I was going to ask about, like, are there nice hikes in the area? How often are hikes a reasonable thing for you to do? Like, what's how's that?
The Appalachian Trail cuts right through here.
Nice.
I think it's actually just a few minutes from us.
Sweet.
So yes, we're right there. And in fact, on the ridge right next to our town, they're building all of these hiking trails on it because a group of people who used to work on the Appalachian Trail, who are now retired and bored, as they put it, are now building. They somehow, I don't know, purchased, but somehow they have all this land on the top of a mountain, and they're just building all these trails.
That's
and
amazing.
You can walk to it from our house.
Oh, sweet.
So, let's go hiking today. That's it. So having that right there is it's just stunning to have that.
That sounds perfect, especially with kids. It's perfect anyway.
Yes.
You want to go for a hike yourself, but especially when you're like, okay, we got to get out of the house. Come on, children.
Okay. Yes. Use up the energy. It was really nice, especially during the pandemic, because, so many things were closed. What could you do? We can go hiking.
Yeah.
That's what we can do. We can go out. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely nothing close to that scale, but at least we live very close to a little sort of wooded park in the middle of this city. And like literally it's just at the end of our block, and our block is not very big. So that was like, we just disappeared in there all the time, and I think I would not actually be able to live in a city if we didn't have that. I can't.
Yeah, I don't think I
handle that long without it. So anyway, that sounds even more lovely. Especially in a pandemic. Plus it must, I don't know, I guess it depends on the area you're in, but it must feel kind of nice to not have a super high population density place to live.
Yeah.
It's like the worst part of the pandemic. You're like, well.
You know, because we would hear about things in the cities like, oh, over here where it's very Philadelphia, things like that. And we're here in our small town with the back roads. And it's like, okay, I think it felt a little less intense here, thankfully. Yeah. So that did help with the anxiety of everything to be in a rural place.
Nice. That does sound reassuring. At least, up until, I don't know, about accessibility to vaccines and stuff. And then that becomes more complicated, but pre-vaccines, it was probably at least a very weird thing. And I don't know, maybe it was fine in terms of vaccine law out there too. I have no idea. How was it?
I think our vaccine rates here in Pennsylvania are actually pretty good.
Yeah.
I think they are. I think we're we're like 6th in the country.
Right. Yeah.
So that's not bad. So
small town were vaccines accessible quickly, or did they take a little bit longer than the cities, or was it the same, or I don't know?
I think it was about the same.
Okay. Cool.
I think because we're not far from the capital. We're not far from Harrisburg. Okay. So yeah.
Nice. Sweet. Okay, well, moving on, because there's only so much we can talk about the pandemic before we all just want to lie down again. But my next question is completely unrelated, or at least only tangentially related. I mean, it is still about you, but let's talk about your dance career. I always do a little bit of snooping around on social media before these to try to find out more about people outside of books. Dance. What? You were like a serious dancer for a while. Let's tell me about it.
Yes.
And maybe
started
still
dancing. I started dancing when I was 9 or 10, as most kids do. And I started at a small town dance school, as most kids do. Very good school, but one of those places where you only went once or twice a week, and I wanted more. So we found another school that was about an hour away, Central Pennsylvania Youth Ballet, which is a very intense school. So I went from going a couple times a week, a few hours a week, to 6 days a week, 20 to 30 hours a week.
Oh, wow.
So that was a pretty big jump.
Yeah.
And so this was serious training. This wasn't like you do this for fun. This was intense. You live this. You live this. Yeah. You're going to, yes. Your life was dance. And I did that through my teens.
Oh.
So my entire teen years was train to be a dancer. Yeah. Every day from like 5 to 9 and all day Saturdays, sometimes Sundays, 20 or 30 performances a year. That was my life. And I loved it.
Yeah.
I absolutely adored dancing and going out on stage and performing. That was just something I adored. I think because it has that connection with writing, where when you go out and you're performing, it's that creation. You're doing something. It's not quite yourself. There's a part of yourself in it, but you're going out and you're playing a character.
Right.
And with writing, it's kind of the same. There's a part of yourself in it, but it's still something else entirely for people to enjoy. Yeah. So I think I was drawn to that. I think I've always been drawn to that kind of creative something.
Nice. And then performance. I've also been drawn to performance, not dancing specifically because I've never been particularly graceful, but but I was an actor and I, I get it, that I do feel like there's a crossover. If you like becoming something else, at least in your head, right? Like then that's, and either is it just in your head, or is it also a physical manifestation? And I mean, there's plenty of authors who don't perform, but I think there are a lot of us who have and do and enjoy that, because we're like, no, it's the make-believe part that is fun, and then sharing that with other people in some way, right? And whether that's words on page or a performance, I think that totally makes sense to me. So then, what do you still dance? Do you instruct? How does dance play into your life?
I stopped dancing when I was about 17 because I had bad knees.
Oh, I hate that.
I have what do you call them? Those trick knees where the kneecaps like to move
dislocate.
Around.
Yeah.
Yes. So it just became too much stress and pressure on my joints. So I started teaching. when I was 17. And then I taught for over 15 years, probably almost 20 years I taught.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So then once I had so many kids, then it became too much to try and teach and have kids and everything. But yeah, there was almost 20 years of teaching on top of almost 10 years of dancing.
Awesome. That's great. I mean, that's
a lot.
That's a lot, but I mean, that's that's great. I mean, like, so what? That's awesome. It's wonderful that you got to something you were passionate about for a long time. And yeah. Is instructing something you think you might go back to at any point when the kids are older and you feel like you have some time?
I don't know. I think honestly, if I had time and energy to go back to anything, I'd probably look for actual classes to take.
Okay, sweet.
Like adult classes for people. Yeah. Not that I don't love children and instructing, but I think I'm kind of at the point where I'd like to maybe go back and just find the pleasure of doing that again and just the movement and dancing, not looking at other people and worrying about how they're doing it, but just myself.
Yeah. That's lovely. Truly lovely. Sweet. Well, that's really cool. And I love that it ties into writing for you, that it's part of that same creative expression. And so before we talk about books though, we've already talked a little bit about books, but before we talk more about books, I would like to go into a little bit about some other non-writing and non-dance related activities. So what else do you get up to in the wilds of Pennsylvania? in the beautiful woods and dancing when you can, and writing.
You make it sound like I feel like I'm Jeremiah Johnson here with ballet shoes. It's the weirdest thing.
I saw some pictures of some amazing baked goods. So what are the things?
I bake. I like to bake. I like to bake. We hike. I homeschool my kids.
That's a lot of.
I feel like I'm trying to think of more things that I do. And I'm like, wait, is this my life now? Oh no.
But honestly, once you've said I homeschool my kids, it's like, well, okay, that's a more than full-time job. And then on top of that, like, if you can do anything at all, that's amazing. In fact, I'm just impressed that you bake. Like,
sometimes I bathe and actually brush my teeth and
hold the press. Wait, what?
I'm wearing pants right now. It's amazing.
Prove it. No, I'm just kidding.
I can do it all. I'm a true Renaissance woman. I have matching. Wait, no, I don't have matching socks on. Never mind. I lose.
I don't even have matching slippers on. I'm not wearing socks on, but I don't even have matching slippers on because I crocheted my own slippers and I messed up the pattern on one. And so they don't actually look the same.
Oh, I crochet too. I do that. There you go. See?
Brilliant. Awesome. Well, there you have it. There are other things. What's the craziest thing you've ever baked? What, like, you bake? What's the? What do you?
Gosh, I can't think of crazy.
Yeah, honestly, for me, like, what's the most complicated thing you've ever baked?
One of the most I remember I made for my second daughter's birthday. I remember she asked for a blueberry and lemon cake, and she wanted it to be 3 layers.
Oh.
So I found a recipe, blueberry lemon cake. I don't know what you call it, when each layer gets smaller. I'm blanking on the term, but the 3-layer cake. Something you know what I mean? Something. Yeah.
I actually don't know baking terms for
I'm
cakes.
a writer and I work with words. But the little.
That's why you have no words left. All the words are in the book, and there's no words left here. That's my excuse. I don't know.
I write good. Words fun. I made
a word real good.
Did all.
Sorry. As you were.
Homemade frosting, did little blueberry decorations all around the side, and then the candles and all of that. And so that's probably the most elaborate thing I ever made.
That sounds cool.
I will probably never make it again either.
Fair enough. Yeah, pretty much anything complicated for baked, I've been like, well, that was a one-time show.
Yeah, you make it once, you take your photos, put them on social media for evidence, and then that's it.
Exactly. You're like, and done. I have a friend who made croissants one time, like real ones with the you roll them out like 8 times in order to get all the
so you have to get the layers,
flaky, buttery, and I'm like, that sounds delicious. I mean, I love croissants, but I will absolutely pay for someone else to make them because that sounds like a lot of work. I can handle whatchamacallums, sourdough bread. That's the most. I'm like, what's the word again? The thing that I make all the time, sourdough bread. And lots of people think that's complicated, but I find like you mostly just leave it. Like the complicated about sourdough is you should not touch it for a while. But I find that very easy as long as I set alarms. We've got a couple of people actually showing up in our YouTube chat. Hello, everyone. We have got Misty306, which is Lois. Hi, Lois. ANP Adventures. Speaking words is overrated. Fair, yes, highly accurate. Brianna Cinder is there, and she says, "Oh, I like that. I used all my words." Yes. And she says, "Yeah, words are for pages." Yeah. So everyone who's there agrees that it's okay that we've forgotten all the words, because that is. We're excused as authors. So thanks folks. Appreciate that. And A&P Adventures says, everyone is forgetting words today. Yes, apparently. We are all forgetting all the words. I mean, it's a Sunday. Like, how are you supposed to remember words? It is. And I haven't had I don't know. And hi everyone who's there. If you have questions, folks, remember we have a 20-second lag from when you from when we answer them to when you'll hear them, but please post any questions you've got and we will get to them as we can. It's lovely to see so many people here and chatting. So hi everybody, thank you. I'm looking over, it looks like I'm not looking at anything, but I'm looking at the chat where people are saying things. I know. Lovely to see you all, and please comment as you like, and question when you have questions. We will get to them. So Brianna also says, I don't even do that. I do peasant bread. Yes, I love peasant bread. I have a great peasant bread recipe that requires no kneading and no nothing. And it's like you go from 0 to bread in 2 hours. It's lovely. But I also really, really like sourdough. So I will go through it just have to it requires a little bit of planning. I have to be like, okay, tomorrow's a bread making day, which means today I have to wake up my starter. But other than that, it's, I don't know. I find it fairly easy. But my starter is like a year and a half old now. Like I made it in April of 2020 and it's still kicking. Anyway, bread. Yes. Sorry. Baking sidebar. But established that the fanciest thing you've baked was a blueberry lemon cake with all kinds of awesome decorations. Did your daughter like it? Was she into it?
Yes. Thank goodness. Oh my goodness. Okay.
Put all that effort in and she's like, no, I don't want this.
This is okay. One bite, put it away. Bye.
I mean, I hear those stories a lot. I feel like my kid is pretty flexible about anything sugary she will happily consume. Yes. But, there are people who go through all the trouble to make like amazing fondant cakes and everything. And then the kids are like, can I get ice cream cake? Anyway. So someone just said, came for the books, stay for the baking. Yes, apparently that's how we're rolling today. It's all about cakes. Sorry, we're not actually going to talk about Miss Percy. We're just going to talk about cakes. Which actually we could easily, that segs nicely into talking about Mrs. Babington.
Yes.
Babington, right?
Babington.
Is there a G?
No, Babington. It's Babington.
Sorry.
I don't know how to say it now. I'm panicking.
It's okay.
It's like Babington.
Yeah, okay. You got it. You're fine. I messed it up, but then
she's my creation, and I don't know how to say it now.
Honestly, I've always feel that like, you finish a book and you've moved on and you're working on the next book or whatever, and someone asks you questions about the book that's launching, and you're like, I actually have no idea.
Yes.
What's the answer? Yes. Like, I know I wrote it. That sounds vaguely familiar, but I actually don't know the answer to that question.
So on page 43, when she says, and I'm like, There's a page 43. I don't know. I blacked out.
Totally. Oh god, especially by page number, right? Like in chapter 5. No, don't know what chapter 5 is. Don't talk to me about chapter 5. Can you describe the scene in detail? Who's doing what to whom? Because otherwise I have no clue. Yeah. There we go. Well, it's okay. I'm not going to ask you those types of questions, and hopefully we'll see what the audience does. But I can always ignore those questions if you want. I got you.
Okay.
So, just kidding. All right. I've seen an awesome picture of you doing archery, and so my question is, how often do you do archery? Is it a frequent thing? Is it a one-time thing? What's the story behind you and bows and arrows?
Okay. Great. Now I get to add to the wilds of Pennsylvania bit. Growing up in the wilds of Pennsylvania, my father was really into archery.
Sweet.
He did archery hunting. He did competitions. We have trophies and ribbons from that. He was very much into that. We had several acres growing up, and he had all the archery targets set up. And I did that for a while when I was a kid. I had the little kid-sized bow, and bing, you know.
And now
so I did archery.
Really I'm way more.
So in the wilds of Pennsylvania, you know, where we churned our own butter and the Amish trundle by, you know, I go around shooting arrows at everything. This was my childhood.
That is brilliant. I'm sorry. There's no like that you're saying like, oh, I'm so embarrassed about the wilds of Pennsylvania. I was like, you freaking got to play with a bow and arrow as a kid, a real one. I'm sorry, but you win childhood. That's I am super jealous.
I mean, do I tell the story of my father running out naked to shoot a groundhog?
Please? I think you have to now. You're contractually obligated to tell that story. I will hear it. I'm just gonna sip water.
We lived out in a rural area, so we had things like groundhogs and stuff, and they would burrow under the sheds and things. You didn't want that because it would ruin the foundations. So I'm sorry for people who are like, "Oh no, the groundhogs," but we would shoot the groundhogs. So there was this one particularly pesky groundhog that my father was intent on eradicating, and he was about to get into the shower and happened to glance out the bathroom window and saw it out in the yard, and without stopping to dress or anything, charges out and grabs his rifle, stark naked, and bolts outside. And we're just sitting there like, what is happening? And he's running outside naked with a rifle to shoot the groundhog. And I honestly cannot remember if he got the groundhog or not, because everything else has just burned itself onto my retinas.
That is amazing. I love it. That's a great
this was my childhood, was archery and shooting and country areas and bears. I remember seeing bears going across the yard. I mean, that was, yeah, so it was the wilds of Pennsylvania, as much as when I joke about it. Yeah, it was.
This is hilarious, because I really just put in the wilds of Pennsylvania because I didn't know which part of Pennsylvania you lived in. And I knew from the few pictures I could find on social media, I was pretty sure it wasn't a big city. But
no.
But I did not realize that I was actually honing in on on a stereotype, really. Like, I really just meant, like, you're not from Pittsburgh or Philadelphia. So the wilds of Pennsylvania, but in fact,
city folk.
Amazing. I love it. Yeah. I do not have equally cool stories about my dad running out to shoot a groundhog. But I wish I did, you know? Amazing. Sorry, I have to sit with that for a minute and process before I can move on.
Sorry. Do we need like the interlude here, or the musical intermission to come up for a minute?
Some pictures of dragons just floating across.
Yeah. Go get some hot dogs.
I'm gonna read commentary from YouTube just to give myself a moment to process. What do we got? So Lois says this Christmas I might try to make my grandmother's black cake, a Jamaican rum and fruit and rum cake. That sounds amazing, Lois.
Yes.
I would like to try that. Lois is in New York, so she can maybe send you some cake. I don't think it'll make it to me and be edible up here in the wilds of Manitoba, but and Lois also says, watching this on my TV, so I'll be in and out of the chat through my phone. Okay, cool. Sweet that we are up on the big screen. I like thinking of us just like, bam, front and center. And
no, that's a horrifying thought for me. I mean, this is like, what?
I haven't showered in 3 days. It's great. I'm excited.
Did I brush my teeth? Oh, crap.
No, you and I won't know, but I bet Lois could tell us. All right, so A&P Adventure says this childhood actually sounds like a fantasy story as a person who grew up in megacities. Yes, that would make it sound like a fantasy story. And Brianna says Quinn's over here like my childhood is too wholesome. And like, yes, but also, did you hear the bit about the naked shooting of the groundhog? I'm not sure where that's the wholesome scale.
My childhood has gun violence and nudity.
Towards pesky groundhogs, I guess. Amazing. All right, those are the comments as they stand so far. Keep coming, people. These are great. But I'm gonna go back to the main list of questions for a bit. Okay, so the answer to how many times have you tried archery is like, archery was a daily thing in my life for a long time. Do you still do it sometimes? Like,
no,
do you just,
no, I don't. Once I got into dance and everything, then it was like, I don't want your archery. I'm going to be a pretty ballerina now. So
yeah, but think of how you could do like a jeté and then like where like, I actually have no idea what it is, but I felt like a good thing to say. But the cross.
Well, if it was a turn, it would have been a pirouette, Virginia. Okay.
Okay. Thank you for correcting me because I have no idea. I stopped taking ballet at age 7 because I had an instructor who was really mean. I don't remember anything. But oh my gosh, A&P Adventures is Anna. Okay, Anna, hi. That makes way more sense. The icons are way too small. Sorry, Anna, for totally not recognizing your icon. Anna is a delightful longtime Twitter friend. She's wonderful. Okay, so okay, so it would have been a pirouette. Pirouette to firing a bow into a target. I mean, come on, like that seems
it's very Legolas. You think of the elves, doing all of their
But actually I just think of like a kick-ass ballerina. Like that's the story I want to read now is like rogue dancer who it also, I mean, it would actually be very easy to turn a ballerina into an assassin. I feel like that would be an easy crossover. Have you already done this? Am I like, or you
don't give me ideas. I have enough ideas.
Well, one of us has to write it. You let me know if you get there first. Actually, you should write it because I know I've already made it very clear I knew nothing about ballet. So, Anyway, I would read that. I'm just saying, I would read the heck out of that book. You could even throw more dragons in. That would be fine too. All right. So, okay, we've covered a lot of the lighter topics. And still, before we get into official book talk, I would like to address one more thing that I think is a fairly large piece of your life at this point. The way I've got the question phrased is like, bend it however you like. But if there were only 3 things that you could tell the people watching at home, or just people in general, about chronic illness and the people who live with it, what would you say? What would you tell people? You're like, okay, I have to make a list. Yeah, I know, it's hard. So it could be one thing. It could be all the things. Please take this as far as you want to go. I just thought that maybe like 3 would be less overwhelming, but yeah.
I think the main thing that I've had to tell myself, I mean, I don't know if I'll do 3 things, but I think the main thing I've had to tell myself is that at no point in my life has there been a set normal. So, This is me trying to not suddenly get weepy for some reason.
Oh, it's okay.
So when you
I cried on here before. Go for it.
So when I no longer have access to that person I was, dancing 20 hours a week and things like that, and I keep thinking that that's where I need to be. I have to be that person. That's who Quenby is. That's who Quen is. She is this person who can, dance 20 hours a week and perform and fly here, go there and travel there. And I think the thing I've had to constantly remind myself is that there is no set Quenby. There is no set person that I have to be. So if I'm no longer that person, it doesn't mean I have stopped being me.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's the main thing that I would tell anyone who has a chronic illness, is that there's no pinnacle or peak or point where, okay, this is where you achieved the high point of who you should be and who you need to attain to be. Where you are on any given day is who you are. That's it. You are always who you are. So,
that's solid. I mean, honestly, I feel like that applies to so many things, not just chronic illness, right? Like, it's also true. No, take a moment. Like, I'll blab for a little bit. It's okay. Yeah, like, it's true for mental illness. It's true for chronic illness. It's true for so many things. It's true for just aging too, right? Like, I mean,
yes,
it applies. I think it applies to all of us at some point in our lives. I don't know. I think that's a really beautiful message for anyone. But I'm sure especially to people who are struggling with chronic illness, because from everything I've like the number of friends I have who struggle with it, it sounds like, like that is a thing that a lot of people struggle with, is like who they feel they used to be versus who they feel they are now. And,
yes.
And a feeling of loss. What a beautiful sentiment. And a number of people have said that in the chat too. Well, all right. Dang. And also, I've bawled on this before interviewing other people. Like I was asking another author about her experience of losing her mom, and I started bawling about losing my parents. And so it's totally fine. We cry sometimes in QuaranCon interviews, and it's all good because humans cry, and it's a perfectly legitimate thing. And I don't know, and it's an emotional topic, because even when you've reached a point where you're good with it, like it's still emotional. Even just recognizing the acceptance and how you've like where you've come in terms of accepting your, like that's emotional. Just being like, I've come to a better place, yay! But that's like that's going to bring up some emotions too. So like, there are no reasons to not cry on this channel. Except that, we try to be funny too.
As someone who is like hurtling towards menopause, there is, I don't need a reason to cry. I mean, the breeze could blow and I'd be like,
totally fair. Hey, okay, but if you would like to not cry, we can move it away from this into some less teary-eyed topics, perhaps. I mean, sometimes our own books can make us cry, but
oh no.
But I don't feel like Miss Percy should, because it's such a lighthearted, delightful tale. So we will finally delve into talking about your wonderful body of work, which you've written a lot of books.
Yes.
I think this was and I can't even remember all the titles, and they cover a lot of genres as well, right? Like you've written some Regency romance series, some sort of paranormal thriller type, but
fantasy horror.
Fantasy horror.
Okay. I've written horror, contemporary romance, Regency romance. I've written a lot of short stories most of those are fantasy, some of them darker, some of them light. I've even written a novella, which is, I think, like a mid-grade, which is a mid-grade fantasy, but that's not out yet. But so it's, basically I'm very much a mood writer. So I'd probably be a very terrible traditionally published author, because they'd be like, well, let's have more of this. And I'd be like, I'm done with that. So
that is a very solid reason for going indie, honestly, when you're just like, yeah, no, sorry, I'm not going to be able to produce the rest of that project that you wanted.
Yeah.
I'm too busy writing this other thing now.
Yeah.
Totally.
I'm writing a mystery about cats now. I was like, that's it. I'm done.
Yep. Sorry. Bye-bye. Amazing, by the way. I would love to read more cat mysteries.
Yes, they're actually very good. That is not a cut against cat mysteries.
No,
that's
mysteries. Just like, yeah, totally. Sorry, now my brain is just like thinking of the few like actual cat mystery and like a cat mystery fantasy book series that I read a while ago. Anyway, but coming back. So the Miss Percy books are, first of all, so this is the first one coming out in 2 days, right? But there's a second one already written, and you're now
the second one's done. It just has to be revised. It has to go through the editing and things, but it's done. Yeah.
Nice. And you're working on a third one now also, is that right?
There's some notes for the third one. The third one is kind of that, what they call it, the sparkle in the parent's eye. That's basically where the third one is.
It's a twinkle in your eye. All right. Very good. So is it going to be 3 books? Is it going to be a trilogy, or are you going to keep adding?
It's going to be 3. It's going to be a trilogy. Okay. It's going to be a trilogy.
Had you planned that from the start, or did it just... Look, I don't plan out my series, but I hear some people do, okay?
I don't plan anything. So I had no idea it was going to be a trilogy. I was thinking, I'll just write this single book. This will be fun. And I'm partway through, and I'm like, well, then maybe it'll be a duology. And then I'm writing the second one. I'm like, oh, I guess it's a trilogy now. So
we'll see.
Here's hoping it stays as a trilogy.
Quintology, perhaps. Just add 2 more.
And then it becomes Wheel of Time, and it's just,
9 books later. Brilliant. Yeah. Hey, honestly, I'm around for as many Regency Dragon books as you would like to write. So I'll keep showing up to read them. And I think I'm not alone in that. So it sounds like a delightful caper to be on. So I'm looking at my next question about actual books. What inspired this particular tale? I did read up on some. I actually think in real time we were already following each other on Twitter, and I remember you posting about sort of the inspiration for Miss Percy as being like a pandemic book needing, and maybe even before, it wasn't just pandemic, it was pre-pandemic even. You needed to go to a place that was like more comfortable, like a low stakes adventure, right? Am I correct in that?
Yes.
But tell us more about that, because probably I may not be I may be not the only one. Not everyone may have read that same blog post is what I'm trying to say. But again, words, what? Yes, please tell us.
We'll just start speaking in semaphore flags.
I actually looked at if there was not high enough to get on screen. There we go. Okay.
It was. I wish that I had some kind of great story about, like those cooking blogs where, when one time when I visited so and so and I was inspired by. No, it was basically I know I always wanted to write a Regency type story with magic or fantasy of some sort. That was I've known that for years. It never went beyond that for years. And then it came very quickly. The earliest memory I have of it was being in the shower, as all good ideas come to you. And you're there and you have no notepad near you. And I'm washing my hair, la la la. And here all these scenes start popping in my head. And I'm like, oh, this is great. I can't write this down, but I'll totally remember it because I'm awesome. And so finish up the shower and I'm thinking about it, but I'm still not in a place, surely I have to think about this more to write it. And then this was all right before the pandemic started.
Okay.
And then we were at church, and it was the week before everything locked down. And I'm sitting there, and I've got the kids bouncing around me, and all of a sudden the first line pops into my head. It was out of nowhere.
It's such a good first
I'm
line.
not thinking about it. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, I've got to get a notebook. So I'm grabbing a notebook from my kids, and I'm like, Mommy's writing, shut up, And so I write. So everybody's there singing. The kids are there, and everybody's there singing hymns, and it's very churchy. And I'm sitting there like, yep, Mommy's got an idea. This is what's happening. I wrote the whole first paragraph, just sitting there, like, that's it. It's done. It's handwritten. I still have it sitting somewhere. And then everything went into lockdown, like 6 days later.
Right.
And my brain just went, this is the story you're writing now, because everything the world is now the dumpster on fire, and you're writing this story about baby dragons and cake, and that's what's happening. And I think it was absolutely my life vest during that.
Amazing.
So, and my kids then had no extracurricular activities. Everything was closed. I would go to my husband's shop because he has a business that he works alone, so he didn't have to close down. So I would go there, and I'd set up my laptop. My mom was watching the kids, and I'd sit and write, and I had the whole thing written in 3 months.
Amazing.
And yeah, and a lot of it I think was panic writing, because it was like, everything's horrible, so I'm just going to keep writing so I don't have to think about everything being horrible. And that's how Miss Percy came to be. Ta-da.
Excellent.
That's pretty much the story.
I honestly think a lot of really delightful novels were written with the exact same pretense. I mean, like most of Cyro's Claw, not that I'm claiming it's a delightful novel. It's certainly not on the same the level of like lighthearted, but it was my happy place for all of 2020 and and like early 2021 too. It was just like, this is the place I could escape to easily. So much so that when I stopped writing and released the book in May, I like sank into depression because my brain was like, "Oh no, we've lost the thing we were." Yes. So anyway, Did you feel any of that? Like when you finished that? I mean, it sounds like you just went into the next book, but was there like a moment where you were like, "No, I can't not be writing Miss Percy. I need that back."
No, I think that's why I immediately went into the second book. So it was not at all. I just kept writing. So I mean, the book was done, but the story was very much and continuing on. Because it's not a standalone. The second book is not a standalone. It's very much a continuing journey type of thing. So I could just zip right into book 2 and be like, I can continue to hide away here in this happy place. So.
Excellent. I'm very happy for you getting to hide away in that happy place. That's lovely. And I was gonna say, like, so there are snippets for anyone who, for anyone who hasn't read the book. No one has read the book except for a few of us who got narcs. But for those of us who have been reading, like you can see there's at the beginning of every chapter you've got excerpts from the actual pocket guide. No, don't. No. This is lovely. Like there are these lovely little snippets, but it makes really clear something that I think wouldn't necessarily be clear otherwise. It almost spoils one of its own mysteries, but not really. It's very clear from the pocket guide that there are years of experience in the pocket guide, right? Like years, decades, even, perhaps, of experience that have gone in the pocket guide. And which is cool to know, because you're like, okay, so this is like, I guess it takes some of the tension even out of being like, is she going to give up? Like, you're like, well, clearly not.
It's one of those stories. It's like you're being told a fairy tale where there's going to be the happy ending, but you just don't know exactly how they get there. So I kind of do give you point B there. That yes, it continues on, you know,
Yeah.
dragons and stuff. But yeah. So that tension is lifted. I don't suddenly rocks fall, everyone dies right at the end of book 3. You know,
we don't have to worry. There's no sword hanging over our head. You know, we know that it's all going to be good, which I like, honestly. Like, and it is for me. I mean, I feel like anyone who's accustomed to reading romance as a genre, which is not necessarily the genre this falls in, but like to reading romance as a genre, is used to the mystery not being what happens, but how it happens, right?
How it happens. Yes.
Yeah. Right. Like it's not the what, it's the how, right? Like we all know that these two characters in a romance are gonna fall in love with happily ever after. That's, we know. The question is, how does it happen? And like the way that tension is built when it's done well is usually by there being some conflicts of interest or things like that, or personality differences that seem not overcomable at the beginning. And then, people having to, I find like my favorite ones are just like, it's about people having to deal with their own baggage in order to move on and be happy with themselves. And thus,
exactly. Yes.
And so like, I love that. And this is less romance focused. There is a romance potential, but less romance focused, but still like, we get these snippets of what Miss Percy's voice is like, even from the pocket guide.
Yes.
Right. Like much later on.
Yes.
And then we get like, okay, so that's our end game, but how is she going from this person at the start to that person at the end? And that's really cool. I like that.
Yes.
I'm personally.
Yeah, because the Miss Percy at the start is nothing like you imagine the person writing these future books about dragons fighting each other and stuff. Like, wait, how did we get from here? Mild-mannered spinster to like she's gone all Jane Goodall living with
exactly.
What has happened here?
Biologist, what is going on? No, it's super cool, and it's super cool to wonder about that. And I felt like I was composing a review in my head, but I'm only 60% of the way through the book, so I haven't actually written it yet. But I was composing a review in my head that was going to start with something along the lines of like. And I'm sorry, this is not a family-friendly channel, so I curse, and I hope you're okay with that. As I say, but like Miss Percy,
you should hear me.
Like, if you look at Miss Percy's Field of Fucks, you can see there are only like 1 or 2 left, and then you watch as her sister slowly rips them from the earth and sets them aflame, and then eventually you're left with a Mildred who has 0 fucks left to give. And but it's a very slow
each
process.
Chapter chips away at those.
Just slowly pulling them up.
My field of fucks, it is very barren.
And then letting them on fire. And finally the entire field has been burned. And then we move in to a period in which Mildred is like, you know what, Diana? Fuck you. Like, really? I feel like that's anyway. And so like I'm going to start my review that way, as long as I still feel like it's appropriate by the time I get there, but I have a feeling it will be. It's just like, it's this slow, very slow watching of like all they're just going up in flames. And then you're like, finally Mildred is like, I'm just going to actually,
it's like this slow, steady. Yeah. Like you just, how many times can you flick someone's ear until they finally just turn around and punch you in the face? That's basically what it is.
Very much that, which is a very sibling rivalry type of interaction that I think a lot of us are familiar with on some scale. No, it's kind of delightful. I also have to say though, I actually really am enjoying Belinda as a character. I'm like, oh, she is powerful, and like and only Mildred seems to notice this, really. I mean, like, it seems I've actually just noticed that Mr. Wiggins seems to be aware of this as well, but like, but really it seems like everyone just makes all these assumptions about her, but Mildred is like, no, like Belinda is a force to be reckoned with, and she says this early on, and everyone else is just like, just a pretty face, and Belinda meanwhile is like, oh, a pretty face. Anyway, I'm excited to see what she does. I'm just like, I have no idea which way she's going to take things. because I'm like watching her. I'm sorry, is this spoilery? Am I ruining things in the book?
You're not spoiling anything, but oh my gosh, I'm thinking about book 2 and book 3,
Oh, yeah.
and you are really, if you're interested to see where she goes, man, you're going to see some places.
Okay, sweet. I'm excited because it's like she's such a cool character to me in that, like, I don't particularly like her at the moment, but she's 17. So, you know,
I'd hold on to that.
but I do like her on some level, because I am like, oh my God, like, does no one else see that she like clearly knows what she's doing, and that this is all very, you know, very intentional. And I'm just
I remember I kind of mess with the readers a little bit. I'm going to try not to spoil it, but
okay.
I think on the very first page of
the
first book, there's the whole thing where Belinda, there's the rumor about how she may have accidentally set another girl's hair on fire. And I put that in there, and I'm like, if you catch that, you are dealing with a character who will set someone else on fire because they consider them a rival for a boy. So just keep that in mind while you're reading this book and this whole series. Just bing, you know. So
but in the same,
highlight that.
in the same paragraph, I think you also have Belinda just like making faces in the back of her spoon. And so I feel like it's this massive setup to like just get us to underestimate her, and at the same time drop a hint of like, maybe you shouldn't underestimate her, all in one go. And just sort of like, I'm leaving this up to reader bias. Let's see where people take it. And my brain instantly went like, I mean, like, actually my brain didn't instantly do anything. I take it back. My brain was just like, okay, she's like clearly very interested in her appearance, which meh, but also like at the time period, like, yeah, like there's so many layers to that, but it's like, yeah. And then, but then the like casual drop of like, maybe she lit her hair on fire. But then the way you're portraying her looking at her face is like, well, maybe it really was an accident, or maybe she did that, but she's just like mean and doesn't really think of the consequences or anything. Whereas I think later on is where I'm starting to be like, oh no, she's aware of consequences. This is not anyway. There's
a lot of maybes there.
There's a lot of maybes, yes. I'm very excited to see where it goes with her. And I feel like it's a delightful contrast to all these other, like, I love the different views we're getting here, because we've got Mildred, who's pretty wholesome and is trying to like, she's always trying to do the right thing, but she's finally just like realizing that sticking up for herself is one of those things, right? And
oh goodness, yes.
Right. Like, she's just spent her entire life trying to not, you know, make other people uncomfortable, right?
Yes.
Like,
yes.
Which I feel like we can all identify with on some level. And then she's like, you know, finally realizing like, okay, yeah, like maybe my own comfort also needs to be on that list. And then we've got Diana, who, for all appearances, and I'm sure there's a much deeper story to Diana as well, but to all appearances is just concerned about the financial and like the financial status and the what's the word I'm looking for? The aristocratic like level
kind of social
her
standing.
Yeah, social standing. Like that. Those are the only two things she appears to care about.
Yeah, she's kind of in my head a little bit. I always think of, I don't know who all knows that what they call the Brit comic, Keeping Up Appearances.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've ever seen that, with the hyacinth bouquet, and she was the one that was all about keeping up appearances. And she came from kind of a lower class family, and that's kind of how this is that, you know, everything has to look good at the expense of comfort and everything.
Happiness.
Everything has, yes, happiness. Yeah. Everything has to look good, and we have to hobnob with the right people, and we have to, you know, yes, like that's her goal. That's her most important thing, is we have to keep trying to claw our way upwards.
Right. Yeah. And that is certainly the impression I've gotten from her, but we never particularly get her POV. So I've never, you know, gotten to see like what the insecurities that lead to that are, outside of just a bit of like her backstory. Right. And then, but then we've got Belinda as yet another counterpart to to the feminine experience in that time period, right? And it's just like, wow, that I feel like she's such a great sort of in between, where it's like she clearly has internalized a number of the things that are important to her mother to some degree, right? But clearly is also just very much playing her own game, like very, very much playing her own game. So that, I mean, that just impresses me, right? Like her ability, she just has an uncanny ability to manipulate the people around her, which is so cool to see. And then to have, you know, to have Mildred be one of the few people who's like wary to her tricks, right? Like, or aware, you know, I like that. And then of course there's Mrs. Babington, who is her own force to be reckoned with in an entirely different way. It's just like, I'm really, really loving it. And I'm excited because I'm not going to give any spoilers, but we're about to get to a scene that is clearly, if the foreshadowing is going to play out, a scoundrel is clearly about to try to do something bad.
Okay.
And I won't even talk about the details.
Okay, I know where you are.
I'll tell you specifically after, but I don't want to, like, you know, ruin it.
Okay.
And I'm just so excited to see how Mildred and Mrs. Babington are going to handle it, because I have a feeling it's not going to go at all the way the scoundrel thinks it will go. And I'm very anyway, so I'm just really, I'm like, want to like stop this interview so I can keep reading so I can find out. But I just like, I really want to get to that scene. Anyway, I think the characters are delightful. They're very well developed. The setting is very well developed as well. I love it. I'm just like, it's a delightful tale, and I hope that everyone else who picks it up enjoys it just as much. I mean, like, honestly, I think it's very well described in the description, right? Like, if you read that description and that appeals to you, then I think you're in for the book that you want. Like, it's what it says on the tin.
That's where all my words went.
Yeah, there you go. The words are gone, but they went into that description, and that's what matters. So everybody go check that out if that sounds good to you. It's delightful. Okay. What else do we got here? Is Upper Pimbleton actually based on, I realized I spelled it wrong in the questions, but I just was reading again after I wrote that, and I was like, oh, that's Pimbleton. But is Upper Pimbleton inspired by a specific place that you've actually been to? Is it a real place? Is it inspired by a real place?
No, it is not inspired by a real place. I think the only thing I could say it is inspired by is the fact that I've always lived in small towns. Okay. So there's always that everyone knows everyone else.
Right.
It's basically it's based on that small town living of everyone knows everyone else, and everyone's in everyone else's business and that sort of thing. That's basically what it's based on, is just small town life. The small town life that I lived. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. That's all it needs to be inspired by. Sorry, I just realized I accidentally clicked away from my notes. Pardon me. So it is inspired by any small town. But you managed to capture, I think, the feel of a small British village fairly well. Have you spent any time in the UK visiting? I have been to the UK. I will say I have been to the UK.
So I spent several weeks there years ago. So I have driven around and seen the small British villages and things like that. So I've been there. It was gorgeous. I loved it. Would adore to go back at some point. But yes, there is something about the layout of the towns and the cities there that is much different from here in the US. Yeah. So which was nice to try and capture in the book. Yeah. And I think you did it well. Like it feels like a British village to me rather than a US one. I tried. I think you did it. I also have only spent weeks visiting the UK rather than living there. So we'd have to run it past someone who actually lives there to see if we really captured it. But even they, like, you were trying to capture that specific feel, 100 years ago. So whatever. And if I get something wrong, I can say, hey, there's dragons in it. Yeah, exactly. Right. Hey, fantasy book. It's not a real place. It's fantasy land.
Yeah, exactly. There's only so much actual historical flavor you really need in a book that's got dragons, right? So totally fair. Okay. I feel like we actually already talked about this because I brought it. Yeah, I did. I brought this up. My next question is, do you want to talk about the very slow turn Miss Percy takes from Cowed Spencer to Suck It, Diana? But we didn't talk about was it difficult to write? Was that something that came easily to you, or was that harder to draw out?
It actually wasn't.
Okay.
It wasn't, I think, because she always had the urge to say "suck it, Diana." It's always been there. I mean, it's not something that she thought, "Hey, maybe I should think this about." No, she has always felt that way,
right?
But just needed to kind of scrape away that top layer. And I think then, having a dragon shake things up was enough to kind of, now I can say what I think, a bit more now. Yeah.
But was it difficult to make it take as long as it does? Because in the book, it's a fairly lengthy development for her to get from where she started to Suck It, Diana. Is like, that's a good half the book before we get there. I mean, and obviously she's thinking it, as you say, the whole time. Like, I think it doesn't seem like any sort of wild turn. We're all just like, come on, Mildred, say it out loud already. Did writing it with that very slow, I mean, I think it's a very reasonable pace of development for Mildred as a character.
Yes.
So
considering that, but like, she's in her 40s and it's taken her this long. Right. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. I don't think it was, because I think it almost ties in with the growth of the dragon a bit. So like the dragon hatches and then the dragon becomes a little bit larger and a little bit harder to manage and all of that. And Mildred kind of goes along with that. At first, it's like these little things happening. And finally, when the dragon becomes too difficult to manage and, so on, then suddenly she has to go at the same rate. Like, okay, this is it. This is now happening. So there's kind of, they kind of keep pace with each other a little bit. So I think in that sense, it was actually fairly simple to just kind of watch them both grow at this rate
and pace it.
So, yeah,
totally. That makes
if
sense.
That makes sense.
No, it totally makes sense. My only thinking is like, man, and this is where I am not good at writing this non-violence based conflict. Like, I'm like, I need people to be threatening each other's lives because I'm so bad at this. I would just instantly have the character turn and be like, and and bring it to a head. Because I don't have the patience to do that. I love reading it. Like, the way you've done it is very, I think it's masterfully done. So this is not, I'm just like, I would struggle as a writer to write it that slowly. And I was wondering if that was a challenge to you or if it just seemed natural. But it sounds like it was a natural progression.
I think too, I mean, we've mentioned that I write romance. And that comes into play a lot. You don't have every time someone has a fight, well, let's get out our swords. It's, it's if only
your relationship.
No. Romance has so many of those conflicts where it's the character, the personality conflicts, and so much tension in romance novels comes off of how characters interact with each other, and sometimes situations like that where you're having to put up with someone for a while and having to be free of that. So I think I was able to take that same pacing and feeling and just slide it over here.
Yeah, nice. And I think it's very well done, and I really enjoy it. And it's actually like reading romance in general, reading books like this has made me realize, like, man, I really want to work on non-life-threatening conflict to try to build that tension better, right? Because I think it's a very important, like, I always love reading it when it's well done, right? Like, it's just really good. When it's not just about a misunderstanding or whatever, but it's actually about deep personal internal conflict and the way that manifests outwardly, right? And I feel like I do a little bit of that in my books, but mostly it's like, no, this person's actually like holding a sword to your neck, so you gotta, like do the thing and fight them, or do something else to trick them or whatever, like it's always the conflict is an imminent and physical danger.
Yeah.
But I love conflicts that aren't that. So I'm like, maybe I should, try to do more of that. So
you should.
That's the thing I'm working on. But well done, and I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
So how we already talked about how many books there will be in the series, so I don't need to ask that question now. And then I was going to ask, but I don't know, well, I'll ask anyway, but how has the pandemic positively, negatively, or neutrally affected your writing? It sounds like maybe it has given a boost to productivity in the last year, but maybe not. I don't know how much you actually normally
It has, it has, I think, just because of, it's a good way for me to deal with anxiety, is just keep working. Yep. So in that sense, it very much has given me a boost to productivity. Though it's hard because having 5 kids at home, that was always a boost, because it's like you would have to learn to work in very short increments. Like I can write, okay, I've got 32 seconds here. I can, I've got to knock out a sentence. Yeah. So I think coupling that with the pandemic, then it was like, just, it did have, I hate to say it helped. I hate to say this worldwide pandemic helped my writing. There is no way to answer this in a way that's not going to sound.
I'm sorry. So like, I
know what you mean. No, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. I'm trying to phrase it and not sound horrible.
So, I mean, I think, okay, if anyone's watching and is worried that Quinn is somehow in favor of the pandemic,
she is in favor of the pandemic.
She's not in favor of the pandemic. She does not like that people have been sick and dying. That is not cool with her. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that in no way.
Do we need like a news ticker running across the bottom of the screen?
This is not something she has enjoyed for the world or anything. We are talking about lemonade out of lemons, folks. And the question is, has it enabled any amount of lemonade? Because for some people, it's so interesting to talk to all the different authors I've interviewed since this started, right? And this entire show has existed only post-pandemic. There is no pre-pandemic version of QuaranCon. So every single author I've interviewed, this question comes up, and whether I ask it directly or it just sort of comes up in conversation, but it's always interesting to me to see how the pandemic has affected their writing, because some authors, it has meant a complete lack of writing. For various reasons, and from the fact that they suddenly all their kids are home, or their spouse is home, they no longer have the quiet and whatever else they need to write, or that the stress is so much that they haven't been able to write.
The anxiety. Or they themselves maybe have been ill, or it's totally. Or someone they know
caring for ill people. I mean, like, there's so many things, and so it's but there are also a number of people who have gotten more writing done since the pandemic, and it's always interesting to me too. Like, it's not even a hard line between whether or not people have had other people at home. Because like, you've had 5 kids at home and have gotten more writing done during the pandemic. I know another author for whom that's also true. There's a balloon. And for me, it's been like waves. Like, I've gotten way more done in certain parts of the pandemic and way less done in the rest of it. And I feel like it's very hit or miss for every author and even individual authors at different times. So that's why I asked the question. And of course, the question is never, do you think the pandemic is a good thing? That is not.
Bring on the pandemics. Come on. No. It's like
let's just let the lockdowns never end. Oh. Yeah, no.
I know. I know exactly what you meant. Basically, But I've always been the sort of person that I think when I'm stressed or anxious, I have to be doing something. Yeah. So I think that's So in that sense, the pandemic has driven me to work more and produce more, because there's many more things to be stressed about. So fair enough. Yeah.
Well, I mean, hey, the world got Miss Percy out of it, and that makes me happy. So yay for silver linings is, I guess, what I'm saying. Hey, like, if we don't have silver linings at this point, we don't have much. So
you have to. Yeah.
Right? We embrace them where we find them. Okay. let's talk about, okay, so Miss Percy 2 is done and dusted, except, well,
Yes.
maybe done but not dusted.
Not quite. It's being dusted.
It's currently in the process of being
mid-dust.
the dust is being shaken off of it as we speak.
Yes.
Great. So it is like so book 1, before let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. A reminder to everybody watching, book 1 comes out in 2 days.
Yes.
Do you have an estimate of when book 2 might come out or not?
My plan is to have it come out this time next year.
Okay. So you're going to
like once a year kind of thing.
Cool.
I just basically, well, I feel if I push too much quicker than that, some horrible family event will occur and then everything will go to chaos. So I figure if I do once a year, that seems achievable. So,
right.
So we're going to do it like the Lord of the Rings movies. We're going to do once a year. Boom, boom, boom.
Nice.
You know.
Excellent. I highly recommend not announcing publication dates that are less than a year out, because I did that once and then both my parents died. So don't,
Yeah.
You don't want to put that out in the universe, let me tell you.
Yes. Yeah.
Sorry, that was a terrible dark joke, but dark sense of humor is all I've got.
Oh no, that's, I mean, I remember when my dad passed away several years ago, and I remember, when he was in the hospital and they had unhooked him and all of that.
Yeah.
We sat there and we were laughing.
Right.
I mean, telling the stories, you don't sit there. I mean, he wouldn't have wanted us to.
Right.
He wanted us to find the joy of a situation. So that's what we did,
Yeah.
And that felt like a great tribute to him.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. I feel like that's
so you've got, yeah. if you cannot find humor sometimes in dark situations, that's, it's a survival tactic, definitely.
Totally. Yeah. Things get a little too bleak otherwise. But yeah, anyway, so yeah, don't tempt fate with
I'm not going to tempt fate with
proclamations of when you're going to maybe
I won't do this to you, mother.
Don't tell anybody when that book is coming out. No. So, sorry. That's it. If I've learned anything in 2020, it's not to make proclamations about when the next book is coming out. So, all right. Finally, my last question is, because we wrap up on a very serious note here, is that if you could be any fantasy creature in fantasy, so that's whatever, what would you be and why?
I even tried to think about this for a minute. I couldn't come up with anything. I mean, because at first I thought, well, maybe I'd be a hobbit, but then you've got people throwing rings at you, and I don't want that. So I'm trying to think of like some NPC tucked away back in the world who is not touched by that's. I don't know. Maybe that really grumpy. Maybe if I was a hobbit, maybe that really grumpy one in Lord of the Rings who just kind of scowls at everyone. Like that would be my character. That's me.
Solid.
I'm the guy who's just scowling and side-eyeing everyone. Go back into my hobbit hole. That's me.
Fair
That's
enough.
my fantasy. Yes.
That seems reasonable. I like it. All right. Okay. Well, that a grumpy hobbit seems like an excellent answer, and most people say dragon. So congratulations on just not picking the thing that most people instantly assume.
I missed a marketing opportunity.
I would be a small dragon named Fitz.
Dang it! Oh my gosh.
Which is to say, a baby dragon. I shouldn't even say small. I have no idea how big Fitz is actually going to wind up being. Seems like probably not small, but
I don't even know how big he's going to end up.
I guess you gotta, once you're done book 3 or 5.
We'll see where he is. I don't know. Small DW maybe.
Have you even decided how long dragons continue their growth for? Or
No. I'm learning. I'm creating this mythology as I go.
There you go. Great. Yeah. You don't need it till you need it. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Okay. I think I'm looking for additional audience questions. I don't know if my YouTube feed has frozen and there are no more audience questions, or if there are no more audience questions. But if anyone has any questions, I will delay us for another 20 seconds so that you can hear me saying this and then ask them. Now is your last chance because we are about to wrap up. And in the meantime, I will remind everyone that Miss Percy's Pocket Guide to the Care and Feeding of British Dragons comes out.
I have regrets.
On the 26th of this month, which is only 2 days away. You should absolutely pre-order it through the link in the description here. That is a link to Amazon. Is it going to be available anywhere else?
Right now, it is only going to be on Amazon.
Okay.
I'm bowing to the Amazon beast.
Fair enough. That is like many of us don't have much choice in that matter.
Yes.
Is it available in print elsewhere or only through Amazon as well?
It will be. There's a bit of a delay. Okay. It will be available for print hopefully within the next month or so.
Okay.
Before the end of the year. That is the crossed fingers promise, hopefully, is before the end of the year there should be print. Yes.
Okay. So there you go. So Miss Percy's Pocket Guide to the Care and Feeding of British Dragons will be on the 26th, and then hopefully on Amazon, and then elsewhere by the end of November, let's say. So please check that out. Okay. Anna says she's adding it to her reading list. Lois asks, which comes first, characters or world building? You sneaky Lois, you have put in a real question right here at the end.
For me, it is characters. It is definitely characters for me. Because for me, you have to have the character to kind of build the world around. Like, I have to know first. Yeah,
makes sense to me. Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that was a very short answer. I feel like, okay, I was like, okay, wait, we're gonna talk about this for a little while.
Sorry.
But that was incredibly succinct. So thank you.
I'm
there you go, Lois.
I'm so bad at talking about I can give you childhood stories and I can give you things like that, but if you ask me, so break down your writing process for me, and I'm like, I don't know. I come up with stuff and I put it down, and
totally.
Like, I can't. I'm not good. I can't. I see authors on Twitter put together these long writing threads of how they do their process, and I'm in awe of that. I can't. I don't know.
No, I'm totally with you. I'm like, wait, you know what your process is? I'm pretty sure my process is sit down and make things up.
Yes.
I sit down and I make stuff up.
Yeah, that is my process. One tweet.
Single tweet, done, in thread. All right. Well, Lois says, thank you for answering my question. You are very welcome, Lois. Thank you so much for coming, everyone who's been watching. Quinn, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to talk to me.
Oh, it was fabulous. It was wonderful.
Well, thank you so much for being here. I enjoyed it very much as well. Again, I'm super enjoying the book, and everyone should go pre-order it immediately. And again, I'm just going to do my one last minute plug that everyone should check out Through Shadows, the QuaranCon anthology that I had failed to plug properly back in September. So now I'm extra plugging it after the fact. Everyone should go read this, or rather go buy, it's a 99-cent for the ebook, $4.99 for the print copy. And I mean, come on, that's just like hardly any money at all. Thanks for watching QuaranCon. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel, because apparently that's a thing that makes YouTube actually show your stuff to more people, and we would like that. We're not doing this to make money or anything, but we like having an audience, so that would be helpful to us. Okay, that's all I've got. Thanks everyone for coming, and I am going to be hitting the buttons that make us not be live anymore in just a second. Okay. And bye, everybody. Okay.